Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for our video channel. And this is Huck TV today. Huck's in the room with me. He's a good girl. And she's in a good mood today. She's been keeping me company. And we've been having fun. And it's been a good day here in Montana. So let me get you on to, this is a missing persons broadcast. Just missing people. So I'll be bringing that to you live from our showroom. I just stood up once more, loves. Oh gosh. So anyhow, a couple of things. I've got some news items for you right off the top that are kind of important, and I'll get to those right from the get-go. On August 26th of this year, just a couple days ago, this letter or this news item came out from the Associated Press. I'm going to read it to you for a reason. It said, official, 6 of 43 missing Mexican students given to the Army. Yeah. Mexico City, 6 of 43 college students disappeared in 2014, were allegedly kept alive in a warehouse for days, then turned over to a local Army commander who ordered them killed, the Mexican government official leading a truth commission said on Friday. Interior Secretary Alejandro Encinas, this is Mexico, surprise comment was the first time an official has directly tied the military to one of Mexico's worst human rights scandals, and it came with little fanfare after he made a lengthy defense of the commission's report released a week earlier. Last week, despite declaring the abductions and disappearances a state crime and saying that the Army watched it happen without intervening, Encinas made no comments of 6 students being turned over to Colonel Jose Rodriguez Perez. On Friday, Encinas said authorities were closely monitoring the students from Radical Teachers College, and at the time they left their campus through their abduction by local police in the town of Iguala that night. A soldier who had infiltrated the school was among the abducted students, and Encinas asserted that the Army did not follow its own protocols to try to rescue him. Wow. So the Army in Mexico is abducting students from what they term a radical college and then killing them. Wow. What can you say about that? Really? So these parents really have no clue what happened to their kids. Did they disappear at college? Did they disappear in the woods? Did they disappear on a hike? And then this information starts to come out. Let's say, if it could happen in Mexico, why couldn't it happen here? Mexico's a little more radical, but I'm having my questions about the U.S. right now. The next story, more of an upbeat story. Pay attention to this one. Also released August 26, 2022, Yahoo Finance. Headline, SpaceX's Starlink partners with T-Mobile to eliminate cellular dead zones. Is it available in your area? That's a joke. SpaceX founder Elon Musk and T-Mobile CEO Mike Seifert announced a joint plan. Coverage above and beyond to eliminate mobile dead zones by leveraging SpaceX's Starlink constellation of satellites in low Earth orbit and T-Mobile's wireless network. The important thing about this is that it means there are no dead zones anywhere in the world on your cell phone, Musk said in a joint statement. We're incredibly excited to do this with T-Mobile. The company said in a statement that despite LTE and 5G wireless networks, more than 500,000 square miles of the U.S., in addition to vast stretches of the ocean, are untouched by cell phones from providers. They added that the wireless industry has struggled to cover those areas with traditional terrestrial cellular technology, mostly due to hard-to-cover land issues. Let me explain this. Cellular signals almost line of sight. And they have to be pretty close. And in fact, cell signals are not supposed to be able to be used from an airplane, even though they have been used at times. Now, this is an Iridium satellite phone that I carry everywhere I go in the woods. Why do I carry it? Well, it has a personal locator transponder right there. That's my backup. I have a standalone PLB. But the Iridium phone is a sat phone, which means it goes from this phone to a satellite down to a contact point on Earth. I could call any number I want to in the world. I would say that it sounds not as good as a cell phone, but not real bad at times. It depends on the connection. Depends where the satellite is in the sky, where you are on the ground. It's best to be on a mountaintop when you use this, but you don't have to be. Iridium plans are expensive, and they can be anywhere from $100 a month and 10 cents a minute or 20 cents a minute to $50 a month and $1 a minute. And I think that's what I'm paying because I hardly ever use it. It's mainly just for emergencies. Now, I have used this on camping trips before just to let people know that, hey, I'm okay, the guys I'm with were okay, just to let people know. And then I turn it off. I've never gotten a call inbound on the phone. I always call outbound. But satellite technology's come a long way. Now, imagine your cell phone instead of this satellite phone. The cell phone would work off the satellites, off a special band that T-Mobile purchased years ago. They will probably be the only mobile cell phone company in North America that will be able to do this, maybe anywhere in the world. It's huge. And I will definitely look into it if I could save the cost of this by just carrying one cell phone. It's a huge step up, and I'm excited about it. Now, I know there's a lot of bad things that people say about T-Mobile, but when they have technology that nobody else has, you have to look at them as a viable option. And especially when you will not have a dead zone anywhere in the world under their plan, that's huge. Because when I travel overseas, I got to buy a special plan for that continent that I'm on. Otherwise, you just get ripped with cell phone bills. So, T-Mobile, look for it in the future. Didn't exactly say when, but I'm going to guess it's sometime in the near future since it came with the press release and Elon's involved. Okay, so let's get to the letters. Hey Dave, watching on YouTube is helping a lot of people. Helping make the words, if that's what they call it, know how to understand mental illness is huge. I suffer with it myself, and like I said, watching you speak on YouTube has helped lots of people other than myself. I wonder why it keeps getting swept under the rug, if that's what they still call it. You're helping fix a problem from the inside out. Keep it up, the great work, and wish you the best. Why does it keep getting pushed under the rug, mental health? I think that's pretty easy myself. Number one, we have a huge issue with not enough psychiatrists in the United States. When some people need to see one to get a prescription, you can't. Sometimes you got to wait months. If the pharmaceutical industry can't make money off their products, then they're not going to push it to the legislators, and you're not going to hear about it. If our government can't make money off of it because there's no pharmaceuticals in development because there's no money to be made, you're not going to hear about it. And I've stated this many times before, I'll say it again. If there's one part of our medical system that needs drastic emergency help, it's mental health. And nobody seems to be doing squat about it. And it really, really ticks me off. All right, off my soapbox. Well, that isn't cool. I should turn my phone off. I know, I'm sorry. Okay. Hey Dave, I viewed your post recently, and a very happy birthday to Ben. Without question, you have helped numerous individuals. I value your thoughts on all fronts. I know I speak for your loyal followers and what we are all dealing with day to day. I had thoughts of you yesterday when I took my oldest girl to college for the first time. My youngest is going into the 11th grade and is very troubled by mental health issues. I think of you and a lot of when she is troubled as a father. I just want to take her troubles away and fix her feelings as I know you did with Ben. I don't think I did, but I tried. You're a great role model, Dave, and I admire your courage to speak so honestly and expose vulnerabilities because everyone has them. Everyone. If ever the chance to meet, I sincerely welcome it. You're always welcome to hunt or fish in Pennsylvania. It'd be a great time. All my best to you and the family. I often get asked, Dave, I've got a teenager in high school who's got mental health issues. What should I do? Number one, sit down, look that child face to face, and have a discussion about suicide. You don't think that they're thinking about it? They are. You got to have the discussion. And you got to tell them how much they mean to you and how great of lengths you'll go to save them. And I know that'll be the end of the world. You'll go to the ends of the world to save them, no doubt. I think that nothing is really off limits. There's been so many young people that have taken their lives in the last year and a half. It's a discussion that has to be had. And be ready. Be ready if they say, yeah, I've thought about it. Don't look shocked. Find the resources. Get into a NAMI class, N-A-M-I. You need to do that. Thanks for the note. Hey Dave, I've sat down to write you so many times in the past year, but always struggled with it. I don't want to presume upon your grief over your son. After all, you don't know me, but the way you have so boldly and courageously shared your heart with us, I feel I know you a little bit, so I wanted to share something with you. After losing several very close loved ones, I experienced such a deep sadness that I struggled to move forward in any way. Many days not even leaving the house, I felt like walking through hip-deep mud. I dreaded the passing of days because each sunrise felt like I was moving further and further away from my loved ones. One day longer since the last time. Then one day I was just pouring out my heart in my prayer, and I had a thought that I believed came straight from my heart, the heart of God. He said, Becky, come forward with me. Your loved ones are not your past. They are your future. They are waiting up ahead with me, and they are cheering you on. Those words were paradigm shifting for me. The thought that it's not about the last time, but the next time, fills me with hope and anticipation. I want to make them proud. I want to finish well. Jesus said, he that believes in me, though he be dead, end of quotes, yet shall he live, and he lives, and believes in me shall never die. Read that again. Yet shall he live, and he that lives and believes in me shall never die. I asked God what was meant by that, because clearly did. God spoke to my heart and said, whatever death means to, whatever it is that you fear about it, that will never happen to you. Those who believe in me pass from life to life. I have other things I'd like to share with you of how I know these things are true, but this may be too long already. I know that I'm praying for you and that you're loved by many. Thanks for those words. Next letter. Hey Dave, I want to send hopefully a quick note. First, I'm super excited because I just ordered your 11-book set. Can't wait to read them. Thank you for the support. And I should say right there, our books are $24.99 on our website. And our website is NA, like North America, nabigfootsearch.com. Go to the online store. Books on eBay and Amazon, north of $100 each. Don't buy them there. Those are resellers ripping you off. I also wanted to say I've been watching your YouTube videos and recently rewatched the Missing 411 documentaries, as well as Vanished, in addition to others where you have appeared in their episodes. Found it highly interesting that a show mentioned the New World Order in season 1 in the episode about the Great Smoky Mountains, and appears to have been filmed in 2017, I believe. All of this very disturbing and puzzling on so many levels. In your documentaries, I was particularly struck by the stories of those who went missing at home. The hunted story with the predator-like creatures seen by the lady hunting in her tree stand, and in Vanished, I think you were really starting to unravel some of this with the physicists who tested Mesa Verde for time anomalies. Yes, and there were some. That blew me away. And when they proved time as we perceive it as different over the Kivas. I also watch all the Bigfoot shows and never heard the information that is on your NABS site about these beings, especially the DNA and the language. I believe they exist, not because I've seen one, but there are far too many reports for it to be a hoax. It does seem as though these beings have abilities to interact with the natural world that we do not, including possibly cloaking or dematerializing. I do wonder if they were to touch a human when in the midst of cloaking, if they could cause a person to dematerialize, at least for a certain amount of time, and maybe in a few cases this might be why search is conducted. Nothing is found, and then months later a body is discovered. Also, the video from a few months back where Villager's letter talked about wormholes and a third branch of physics that has been kept from the public was highly intriguing. I think that may be another puzzle piece. I also wonder what the people are doing at CERN with the particle accelerator, and if that has any relationship to any kind of reports of sightings from UFOs to non-human beings, etc. I can't understand how these people are left to do these experiments with no oversight, with any regard to the consequences. Good question. But then again, look at everything else going on in our food, energy, border, financial system are being destroyed globally. All this related, and it's all planned, and anyone who doesn't see it is clearly not interested in finding the truth. I've tried to tell 2 people for 2 years and was either laughed at or called a conspiracy nut. The proof is out there. Hey, don't feel bad. I get called a conspiracy nut all the time, and I don't even talk about a conspiracy. I don't even give any theories. So how can I be a conspiracy theorist? Thank you. I wanted to mention 2 experiences I've had. Last summer, worked from home since the pandemic, and last year about this time was sitting in my first floor family room, having paused working on my laptop. I was staring out one of the windows looking at the neighbor's house, lost in thought. Suddenly I noticed a small orange and white orb appear outside the window and enter my house through the window. I watched it float about 10 feet into the room with me and disappear. It's about the size of a softball. This happened on 2 other occasions. I have no clue what it was, never seen an orb like that before, and haven't seen it again. I wasn't afraid of it, but puzzled as to what it was. This happened back in '91. I waitressed at a country club outside of Pittsburgh while attending college. One Saturday late afternoon, I was prepping for the dinner rush in the main dining room and had gone into the main bar area to talk to the bartenders. I was standing at one end of the bar talking to them at the opposite end, watching the one TV outside from me and the bartenders, there were 2 other waitresses standing around. In the middle of my conversation, it was like time stopped, and all of us were frozen in place for a short period of time. Then whatever it was released us, and we all looked at each other stunned and said, "What the hell was that?" We had no words, but knew something very strange had occurred. I walked up to the main dining room and asked the hostess if she noticed anything. She said no. It seemed like only those of us at the bar area were affected or noticed. In closing, I wanted to say that I believe we are meant for abundance, success, and above all, to help each other. Oh, here we go. I'm the only one in the house. Dogs outside barking. Or in the next room barking. Great. In closing, I want to say that I believe we are meant for abundance, success, and above all, to help each other. We need to get back to that mindset because times are going to get very difficult. I also believe we're going to find a lot more lies and crimes fed to us by the psychopaths who think they can run this planet. At this point, I would not be surprised to find out that they are not human. It won't be all that bad, though, and hopefully we will learn much about who we are, why we're here, and the keys to unlock some of these mysteries. Thank you for being a light in the dark. Thank you for the kind letter. Interesting thoughts. So, the story about being frozen in time in a room. I've talked about this before. Too many times a person has disappeared in a bar setting. A bar again. In a bar setting. Nobody ever sees them leave. Nobody hears them go. Nobody can get the person on their cell phone. And they leave the bar. And hours, days later, they're found in a river, dead. And nothing on CCTV catches the person leaving. What the heck happens? How could this happen? There's one specific case in Ohio where a pre-med student disappeared from the top floor of a bar. Somehow, there was constant CCTV footage on the only exit out of the bar, and he wasn't on it. The detective said at the time, or even 10 years later, it was the most phenomenal case he's ever worked in his life, and he still to this day can't figure out what happened. So yeah, something like this could be happening. Next story. Hey Dave, I've thought about writing you for this story after watching Missing 411, The Hunted. That was our second documentary. You can watch it free online right now. I've hesitated because this wasn't something that happened in the woods. Now, after hearing all the stories people sent in, I thought I would write. Maybe too late to have you read to the village. That's okay. I hope you find it interesting nonetheless. This happened while I was living in Oregon a little less than 2 years ago. Spent a lot of time in Oregon. I live tucked away in a little cluster of townhomes right off the highway between Portland and Salem. 2 streets over from me ran the Tualatin River. The area where I lived, it was decorated with a mixture of homes and wilderness. It was like living in a small town in the city. Gorgeous place. What I loved about the place was the backyard. It's overrun with foliage and trees, like having my own personal mini forest. It was great because it was thick enough to hide the fence and blocked off the businesses operating through the day. I could walk onto my patio and sit and enjoy the view. There was a large window that faced out to the patio along the back deck. My cats were lucky to have their own personal interests so they could enjoy coming in and out as they will. A quick side note, as this is important to the story, my 2 cats have different personalities. There's Jack the Ripper cat. He was named appropriately as he became quite the hunter. Once he brought home a tiny live garter snake. He's also kind of a bully at times and gives my other cat a hard time. And then there's Mr. Peterman. He is a bit of a scaredy cat. He mostly hides unless I'm the only one home, and then he'll come out. Except when I'm sick in bed, he will come in and lay on the bed with me. Otherwise, I find him holding in the closet under the bed. One night I fell asleep reading a book on the couch and awoke to my Jack crying and clawing at the cat door. I assumed he wanted out to play with the neighbor's cat who's often out at night. I'd been keeping him inside the last few nights because a coyote was seen in the neighborhood. Mr. Peterman was hanging out with his cat next door to the couch. As I was sitting up, I glanced towards the back door. The blinds were, however, closed. It was almost like this orb thing I saw made everything surrounding it transparent, because I saw this perfectly through the walls and the window. The orb wasn't like a glow ball. It was different. It was bright orange and looked almost like the letter K slanted back, but the lines were not touching. In my mind, I got this image like it was two entities traveling in a mission. It was moving diagonally and almost seemed like it was gliding down the trees. And the moment I saw it, it bounced back up like a check mark with a forward motion. I felt like because I saw it stopped it from where it was supposed to be going. Immediately, I got this thought in my head, a thought that wasn't exactly mine. This was before I learned about mind speak. But it was exactly like that. I completely caught this thing off guard, and I was told I was not supposed to see this. I sat there stunned for a minute. It freaked me out. I sensed whatever I saw was upset at that and freaked out that they were seen by me. It was weird. I froze for a second because I was really trying to understand what had just happened and freaked out about the thoughts. When I got the nerve, I grabbed my scaredy cat, Mr. Peterman, checked windows and doors to make sure it was all locked, and ran off to my room. I grabbed Mr. Peterman so my other cat, Jack, wouldn't start picking on him. He does this when you can't get outside. Usually, what happens when I bring Mr. Peterman to bed, he'll lay there for a few pets and then go hide in the closet. Like I say, he's a scaredy cat. This time he did something he's never done before and hasn't since. He jumped off the bed and went and stood in the entrance to my bedroom. He stood alert like he was expecting something. It was like he was guarding the entrance to my room to protect me from whatever was out there. He even stayed there after my other cat grew tired and came in the room to sleep, which was wild. He stayed up there all night. Well, there's my story. I hope you find it interesting. I want to personally thank you for everything that you stand for. I admire you. You're a respectful, kind-hearted person. I'm so thankful that you speak out about mental health issues. I'm one of the villagers whose life you have had a tremendous impact on. And if you hadn't spoken up about suicide and the impact it has had on you, I would not be here writing you this email. You continue to be a beacon of light. I am forever grateful. Wow. I'm humbled. Truthfully. I appreciate your story. If you hadn't been here, thousands of people wouldn't have heard it. So you're here for a reason. You need to find that reason. And you need to stay here. Who would take care of Mr. Peterman? Come on. They need you. Next story. I've been a listener since the 2010s after an experience in a state park while hiking with my dog. I found your website and have been hooked on your YouTube videos and books since. You seem to be in a better place since the passing of your son, Ben. The feelings never go away. We get better at handling them. All we can do is try to live our lives in gratitude of the time we spent with our loved ones. After listening to a recent YouTube video of yours, I'm compelled to share my experiences with orbs. It took place in 2016. At the time, I lived in the Midwest, right under a glide path to a large airport off to the northeast. When outside, I always find myself looking up, trying to guess what airline and type of plane is flying over. The first experience was in November 2016. I was on my back deck talking to my husband, who was out of town. He was venting about some poor treatment from his family during and after Father's Day, his father's death. It was partly cloudy and was just starting to get dark out. I was standing and looking off to the south. I could see an orange light in the sky approaching my direction. I remember thinking it was an aircraft, but it's flying too low. But I've never seen a single light that color on any aircraft that I know. I'm not familiar with local aircraft in the area. I served in the military in the 80s and have an interest in aircraft. As it advanced, it was flying at treetop level. There was no observable airframe, contrails, or noise. I estimate the size to be about 3 or 4 feet in diameter. It looked like orange flames put into a clear sort of shell. Definitely was not a drone. Another object that looked the same followed the first one, following the same trajectory. I estimated the distance myself between these objects at roughly 100 feet. And no, I was so astonished at what I was seeing, I didn't think to take a photo of it. How I had gotten that photo would have been great. And when you know it, the other neighbors were not in their yards outside at the time. That's the way it always is. I have 2 objects matching the same description about 4 years ago now that I'm living in another state. I was outside in the dark looking at the stars, and it was a clear night. Another notable, more personal experience happened to me one night while I was lying in bed trying to sleep. My husband travels with his job, and my son was out with friends. I was having a hard time sleeping and was propped up with some pillows. I saw a white light about the size of the tip of a pencil that gradually expanded to the size of a grapefruit coming from the crack in the closet door. It was the purest white and seemed to be something. I wasn't afraid of it and felt it was there to tell me things were going to be okay. It gradually shrunk and then disappeared. I have to add that I had paranormal experiences in that particular house. Not all of them good. The house had been owned previously by a man that died of cancer. It has been one of those. I had been one of his visiting nurses. Crazy, huh? I've always been sort of sensitive and open to things. There's so many things we just don't know. Some of us just more curious and want to know, aren't we? I appreciate your YouTube videos, and I'm a subscriber. You always get a thumbs up from me. Thank you. Yeah, I think some people just are curious in life, and others aren't. Hard to explain. It's almost as if it's part of your DNA. Next note. Hi Dave, I'm a long subscriber to your channel and look forward to your videos each week. I've also watched both your movies that you and Ben had made. Last week you talked about the family dog that disappeared and was never found. That story reminded me of an incident from my childhood that I think you may find worthy of sharing. I was 10 years old at the time. This occurred back in '67. A family friend was moving to another state and could not take their family dog Peanut with them. They called my mom asking if we could adopt Peanut. I was really excited when my mom hung up the phone from that call and told me that we were going to get a dog. When the family showed up to drop Peanut off on their way out of town, their little boy Jetty was crying as he handed me Peanut's leash. I promised him that I would take care of Peanut and not to worry about him. I also thanked him for letting me have his dog. That must have broke that poor boy's heart. Peanut was a mutt, about the size of a beagle, and I immediately fell in love. My dad and I built him a doghouse in the backyard because Mom would not allow pets in the house. We lived in a neighborhood in Charlotte, North Carolina, and our backyard was enclosed with a 4-foot-high chain-link fence. Peanut had free range of the entire yard. It was summer, so school was out, and I spent the next few weeks frolicking with my new best friend. Then early one Saturday morning, my mom found him lying in the middle of the backyard. What she saw caused her to let out a blood-curdling scream. Hearing this, Dad and I rushed outside to see what she was yelling about. Peanut was laying on his left side and had been cut open from the right side of his neck down to the right side of his shoulder. There was no blood on the wound or on the grass where he lay. The skin was laid open and we could see muscle. He was still alive, so my dad told me to hurry back into the house, grab a bed sheet. He wrapped him up in the sheet and laid him in the back of Dad's truck, me climbing into the truck bed with him. When we got to the vet's office, they told us to wait outside while they attended to Peanut. While we were waiting, Dad and I were trying to figure out what had happened to the dog and how it could have happened there. He was inside of a fence with a padlock gate. We had slept with the bedroom windows open and no one had heard the dog bark, as he would have had to have if someone or something had climbed the fence. Not even a yelp from the dog, as that cut would have been painful. There was no blood anywhere on the wound, the dog, or the surroundings. When the vet came out and told us that we could take Peanut home, Dad asked him what was used to make the cut. The vet said that it was a precise incision, and whatever was used was sharper than a razor. Sharper than a razor. Whew. Dad asked him, "What is sharper than a razor?" The vet just shook his head. He didn't know. He went on to inform us that no muscle tissue had been damaged, not even a scratch. So he sewed him up and gave us some antibiotic for the dog. So if that wasn't strange enough, Mom's friend called that same evening to ask how Peanut was doing. Mom told her what happened to the dog, and her friend informed her that the real reason she had called. She said that her son Jetty had woke up in the middle of the night screaming. Peanut, something bad had happened to Peanut. She went on to say that Jetty had been pleading with her all day to call my mom. So who or what could have made the precision incision? And just as an important, why? And how did Jetty, the former master, know about it? I still ask myself these questions, and after all these years, the answers elude me. That is one reason that your missing cases are of great interest. Another is your tireless investigation on these cases. Keep up the great work. Thank you. A couple things about that. First of all, we've talked about mutilated cows a lot, but mutilated animals has been happening for decades as well. Yes, dogs. Dogs that have been found in neighborhoods and backyards, mutilated just as you described. And nothing is ever heard. There's not a scream, there's not a yelp, there's not a bark, there's nothing. So how does this happen? Obviously, they have to lay the dog down to make the incision. So how do they do that? Unless they take the dog from the location and then put him back, just like they do cattle mutilations. To find a dog alive like that, I'm not sure I've ever heard of that. That could be a first. So you're very lucky you got Peanut back alive. I don't know. Time to call the dog whisperer and have a heart-to-heart and figure out what happened to that dog. So, got some pretty interesting stories for you today. And hope I can make your mind engage. First of all, first case, December 18th, 1920. James Collins, 16 years old. He lived at 27 Trinity Place in New Bedford, Massachusetts. Look it up. I'll show you a picture of it later, but father was a town alderman. He was a hunter. He'd been hunting since he was 12, knew the area around there really well, played in the area, ran in the area, hunted the area around his house. Told his parents where he was going to go, Turner Pond, to hunt the area. The article said it was about a 2.5 mile bike ride. I think it might have been a little shorter than that. But if you look up 27 Trinity on Google Maps, you'll be able to actually see a picture of the house that's still there. But this is 27 Trinity in New Bedford, Mass, right here, saying it's about 2.5 miles to the Turner's Pond. Now, there's New Bedford Regional Airport here. Before, this was just Opie Marshy area where this incident happened. So, he took his bike, rode the 2.5 miles, took a shotgun down, started to hunt. Said he'd be back late that afternoon. Well, he didn't return. Police are called, friends, everyone goes out to search. And it was freezing cold. And they don't find anything. The next day they go back out. And they found the ice around the pond not broken. But then right around the pond, they find James' 2 gloves, his ammo container that he carried on his waist, and the shotgun in the mud in the breech position, as though it had been thrown or dropped. Yeah, I told you this is going to get strange. So, this is James Collins. So they find this stuff in the mud, and it's next to a frozen body of water. None of the ice was broken. So they searched the area. 4 bloodhounds came in, They worked it for 9 days. And then the city, at the prompting of James's dad, spent an unbelievable amount of money, and they decided to blow up Turner Pond to make sure that James isn't in the water. They spent $20,000, and they had 200 pounds of dynamite, and they blew up the pond in multiple places. Now this is, you got to remember that they had already searched the area upside down and backwards. Now they dragged the pond for 4 days. They searched it. They drained it. Nothing. The police came out and said they are positive James is not in the pond. Well, that's odd. Well, as they're going through all this, the day after James disappears and the day that the search really starts, his dog that he took with him hunting, named Tramp, shows up at his house. Well, they tried to get Tramp to take him back out, wouldn't have anything to do with it. Now, the search goes on for James for almost 2 weeks. And on December 31st, I constantly tell you this in stories, but I'll tell you, I read this and I thought, is this a fictional story? And then it was highlighted by a lot of wire stories, so I know it wasn't. On December 31st, at 2:16 p.m., Tramp, the dog, is run over and killed by a train that traveled close to James' house. That's unbelievable, folks. That's unbelievable. It was a New Haven Express train that ran over the dog, and they found it next to the tracks. Bizarre. Well, they still haven't found James. Police say he's not in the swamp. There were some people that were living in that swampy area. They talked to him. There were people that heard 3 shots fired the day James disappeared, but they checked his gun. Wasn't fired. Other people said they thought they saw a young boy getting chased through the swamp by 3 other men. So they kind of thought foul play was going on, and they looked into that. They interviewed everyone who lived in that swamp area. Nobody turned out to be a suspect. Things were looking pretty grim. Then 2 boys from New Bedford that knew James was missing also knew that there was a $500 reward out there for him. So they went out every day during Christmas vacation and searched that swampy area. And then one day, on the 9th of January, they find James' body in the swamp. Yeah. They call the sheriff, call the police. Police come out, and then the coroner, Dr. Daniel O'Brien, wrote a report about the incident. Said that James was found in 18 inches of water. And the doctor said he had drowned. Said that his feet, not his boots, his feet were in the mud. There was water in the lungs. It didn't say he died of exposure. It said drowning. 18 inches of water. On July 20th of that same year, the court case, a judge had to decide if they were going to give the reward to those 2 kids, and they did get it. But when you think about this case, area previously searched how many times? 50? Canines, they brought bloodhounds in. 4 different bloodhound teams were worked 6 different days. They couldn't figure out and pick up a scent. Missing clothes. They found his mittens, they found his ammo pouch, and they found his gun laying next to the pond. That's why everybody was sure he was in the pond. Water, And then his own dog was with him. Remember that. That's part of the profile points. And then his dog survives, gets home, and then is killed on the 31st. Bizarre. James Collins, 16 years old, disappeared December 18th, 1920. One of the stranger cases, but one of the most on-point cases that you'll ever hear from me. Next case, a man named David Dillingham. Disappeared November 11th, 1913, Mount Tabor, Vermont. Very, very rural area even today. He was a resident of West Paulides. He had hunted that remote area for decades, knew the area like you knew your backyard. And he and his friends, 2 friends and his son, made a hunting camp out of the old Griffiths lumber camp on the outskirts of Mount Tabor. Mount Tabor isn't a mountain. Mount Tabor is a small city. About 203 people, about 1 mile outside of Danby, Vermont. It's just 43.8 square miles. It was established in 1803. It's right on the edge of the Big Branch Wilderness. Well, David went out hunting, was supposed to be back by the end of the day. He doesn't make it. His son goes into town, calls for fish and game. They were so far into the woods, it took them 3 days to get back in to make the call. And then a report comes in on November 15th, 4 days after he disappeared, that somebody heard someone calling for help in an area near East Wallingford. So, Mount Tabor, outside in the woods there, that's where they were hunting. Here's East Wallingford, and here's Bennington. Now the distance between here and here is 35 miles, maybe only 3 miles. A person could make the hike into East Wallingford from where they were hiking. The reason I put Bennington up is I call it the Bennington Triangle. In Missing 411 Eastern U.S., I wrote about a series of disappearances there that are equal to the most bizarre I've ever written about, that actually fit our profile. And they are truly bizarre cases. And this is all in the same sort of, line, because this is all one solid force, even still today. This is the New York border. So, David, again, very experienced outdoorsman. His son said that at one point in the past, his dad had gone missing before for 2 days. But his dad was such an outdoorsman, nobody even worried. And that's why they didn't worry that much this time up until 2 days. Third day, they started to worry a lot. Well, they had upwards of 203 people per day searching for their dad. And it was a 6-day search and rescue, and they found nothing. And they still have found nothing. The calls that were heard in East Wallingford couldn't be explained. The people said that they heard it high up in the mountains. They thought it was somebody calling for help. So, next case. I had some people today tell me that their relative got a draw for 2 elk tags for Wyoming. Let me tell you, Wyoming is the last place on earth, read my lips, last place on earth I would go hunting. There are more counties in Wyoming where, more counties in Wyoming where chronic wasting disease has turned a positive than any other location in the United States. That's right. If you shoot a big game in Wyoming and you don't get that tested by Wyoming Fish and Game, you are cuckoo. They will test your game for chronic wasting disease. Knowing what I just told you, if you go hunting there and you kill something and you don't get it tested, you're stupid. Let me just be honest. But I wouldn't hunt there. Not a chance. Now, I have good reasons. And if you're so thick-headed that you think you've got to hunt there, friends, maybe you ought to have a perspective like I do. So, this next story has to do with Wyoming. Dr. David Perry, PhD geologist, 30 years old, disappears August 5th, 1969, in the area outside of Cody. Now, he was employed by the Molybdenum, Molybdenum Corporation of America. And he was on a trip to Wyoming for the company, and he had made many of these trips in the past. He was in shape, he's an outdoorsman, he liked looking for this mineral. He was originally from Rochester, New York. Now, molybdenum, I don't know how you say it. I'll get 10 of you to tell me, I know. You guys love telling me. It looks like lead. Yeah, it looks like lead. If you look it up online, Molybdenum. And it improves the strength of metals. It's also a dietary ingredient. It carries the atomic number 42, and you have to extract it. You have to extract it from the ground and other minerals. And when you look at it, to me, it looks like lead. But when you take it as a mineral in the body, it activates enzymes in that body that break down harmful sulfites, and they prevent toxins from building in your body. It's a good thing to have. But people that mine it can get poisoned by it in extensive degrees. Now, in August 1969, David planned to make this trip. The company knew about it. They knew the path he was going to take. They had maps. They knew everything. And they were going to monitor him. And they said that if he didn't come back, they'd be looking for him. Well, he was last seen August 5th on the Ishigan Trail, 38 miles up the South Fork of the Shoshone Trail. He planned a 4-day trip, and he left maps in his Jeep at the trailhead indicating exactly where he was going. Smart man. Smart man. Well, when he didn't come out in time, his company did the right thing. They immediately put a helicopter in the air, and they flew searches into 11,500 feet, into areas that were too rocky for horses but were good for bighorn sheep. And they flew 11 days of those flights. Then they called the local sheriff. 11 days, 8 hours a day, 88 hours of flight time at probably $1,200 an hour. The company spent a lot of money looking for that man. Well, the sheriff then hired some mountain guides that live near the trailhead. And those two guys searched for him for 2.5 months. There's a lot of weather issues that put down the helicopter for days, kept the guides out of the mountains. He was considered a very high intellect, in very good shape, super smart man, and he disappeared in a cluster zone that we've identified. It's kind of right near the edge of Yellowstone National Park, and not far at all from the Montana border. So this is Cody. Montana border is almost right up here. Yellowstone National Park's right over here. And this is the trailhead for the creek. And he walked up into 11,500 feet of the mountains looking for this mineral. Like looking for a needle in the haystack. This is what Dr. Perry looked like. Super smart, from New York, geologist. Now, friends, I got to tell you something. He's carrying a big backpack. He's carrying all kinds of hammers and things that you need as a geologist. Nothing is ever found. How can that be? Those old backpacks in 1969, they were all aluminum framed. They're never going to go away. They're going to be forever. So where did David go? I talk to you a lot about intellects, people who have disappeared in the wilderness. David was described by his company as easygoing, highly intellectual, loved the outdoors, loved the physical challenge, was a team player. The kind of person everyone wants working for them. This area of Wyoming is awesomely gorgeous. If you ever get there on your way to Yellowstone, come down into that area near Cody, just west of there, and take a look around. You will be stunned. So anyhow, those are the 3 stories for today. Hope I made you do some thinking. Huck's very happy that I'm done now because she's been making all kinds of noise, running around, having fun, knocking into the tripod, bringing toys in here. She goes, Dad, come on, stop talking to the wall like you are. Can you just imagine what the dog's thinking we're doing? So anyhow, a Uniden sat phone will be worthless in a short period of time. Just keep that in mind. I appreciate you being here. Do something nice for somebody. Anybody. And be nice to yourself. Make yourself happy every once in a while. And friends, I haven't said this in a while. Our society has stopped. A lot of people in society have decided that YouTube is going to be their form of entertainment. And sometimes I've always, in the back of my mind, thought that all these little apps and things that you could sit and watch and entertain yourself with, they don't expand your mind much. And if you can think back in history, the history of the United States was built on reading books and learning. And when you go to college, that's what you do. You read books. It's good for your mind. And I'm not saying this just because I write books. I'm saying that I think it's good for our intellect to read. Something I do all the time. Thank you for being here. Please share this video with people on your social media. I'd appreciate it. And get out there and enjoy the great outdoors. Paulides out.